We're here again for another segment on VenueMagic tutorials, and this one is going to be a little bit more advanced tutorial, and it only applies to the SC Plus and SC2 Plus versions of VenueMagic. If you don't have those versions, it's not going to do you any good at all. So for those of you who do, here we go. So what we received this time is an email where they were asking how to have a single button be able to run more than one timeline. And what this does is this requires a special feature inside of VenueMagic called the multi-event feature. So this is a description of their request. They basically have 4 or 5 different timelines that they want to be able to play, and just have one timeline running in the background constantly, and have the other timelines be able to roll through those as it needs. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a blank VenueMagic project. So I just did File, New Project. What we're going to do is we're going to drag out some different audio clips into VenueMagic to kind of give a little bit of stuff to do. Let's go Mysterious. And for our background, we're going to do the toccata and fugue, one that we include. And then we're going to add an event track, and we're going to go File, Save As. We're going to go New Folder. We're going to call this Multi-Event Training. And we're going to call the timeline background. Okay. Next thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and save the project. Multi-event training. Okay. And so we're going to create a new timeline. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new timeline by clicking this button. We're going to call this timeline 1, although you could call it whatever you want. We might go back and change the name. But first thing we're going to do is drag an audio clip in here. And for demo purposes here, I'm going to try to keep my audio clips less than 20 seconds. We're going to add an event track, create a new one. We're going to call this timeline 2. And let's see, which one did I put on timeline? Caught again on timeline 1, so we'll put this one on timeline 2. Nice short 13 seconds. Add a new timeline. Save this as timeline 3. Grab some of our techno music. Our volume levels here so you can get those. Okay, and actually what I'm going to do on this is I'm actually going to shorten it to 20 seconds. Okay, new timeline, save that one, 4, grab the next one here. Shorten this song as well down to about 20 seconds there. And we're going to do one more timeline, timeline 5. I just did the Control S for saving. And put in the wave. Shorten this one as well. Down to 20 seconds. We're going to save all of those, and then we're going to make sure that each of them have an event track, because we're going to use the event track for a couple of different things. There, and that one's got one. Okay, I'm not going to do any lighting lighting for this because it doesn't really matter for the setup. Just having some audio going so that we can actually hear what's going on in addition to seeing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these Q buttons, right click, delete, right click, delete. So I'm going to have two Q buttons. Now this functionality, a couple of reasons it needs SC+, first of all, we use the variable table. I'm actually going to create two variables here. The first one is called currently playing. 0 means not playing. Okay? So basically what this variable does is this allows us to check and see if we're currently running a timeline. Just a nice easy way of being able to define that. There's other ways of checking, but this allows you to have more control over when you're playing and when you're not playing. Second thing we're going to add is a variable called nets timeline. This tracks the nets timeline to run. Okay, we're going to start that at 0 as well. Now that we've got our two variables, we're going to come in here and go into button properties, and we're going to set this button up to do our new multi-event. It's actually been in here since last September when we released our latest release. But we've got some people asking some questions that specifically take advantage of this. Okay, so in our event properties, the multi-event basically allows you to set up individual events that run whenever. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a set variable event. This variable event is going to set our nets timeline, and we are going to add 1 to that. Okay, the next one we're going to do is, since we only have 5 timelines, we need to be able to reset it back to the first one. We're going to set up another variable to set the nets timeline. We're going to set it back to 1, and we're going to go back and do conditions in a minute here, but let's do with this condition right now. We do not want to have this running when our variable table is playing. So when it equals 0, we want it to check. Okay? So what this is going to do is this is going to set it back to 1. We also need to say when the nets timeline is greater than 5. And this is where we would change when we get more than that. Click OK here, and conditions. Now, one of the reasons I'm doing this tutorial is because I set all of this up in our latest beta, and in order to send it out to the person who asked the question, this project, I needed to redo it back into the older released version. Okay, so now we click OK here. We're going to click OK here. I'm going to go ahead and watch some inputs. This is a cool little window that will let you actually see what these values are currently set to. So I'm going to bring that up. They're currently 0. If I push the button, you can see it switches to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then goes back to 1. Okay? So, now that we have those timelines in here, we're going to go ahead and we've got our variables created. We're going to go ahead and go into each timeline, and we're going to add 2 events. First event we're going to add is a set variable event. We're going to put this right at the beginning, and we're going to set the currently playing variable to something greater than 0, because that's what we're checking for. checking for. The second thing we're going to do is at the end here, we're going to do a run timeline event to run our background. And we want to tell the background to run looped, and we're going to tell it to do foreground 1 because we only want one of these playing at a time. Go back to our list here. So basically, we're going to have timeline 1, which I've labeled background, sitting there looping. We're going to wait until someone pushes the button, and timeline 2 is going to start playing, which is going to be timeline 1 in my situation here. It's going to keep playing. Once it finishes, it goes back to timeline 1, the background, and loops, or a standby state. Okay, so that's what we've done here on timeline 1. We've set a currently playing, so we can't just start something else in the middle of this. And then we've got a run timeline event to run the background. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm actually going to select these, copy, on each of the other ones. So we'll drag that to the beginning, drag that to the end, paste, beginning, end, paste, beginning, end, and paste, beginning, end. Okay, now in the background, we need to be able to tell it that the background can be interrupted. So we're going to drag this set variable here, and we're going to set this variable to 0, the currently playing to 0, because we want the background to be interrupted. In addition, because the background is run at the end of every other timeline, this will automatically get set to 0 whenever the background is run. Okay. So we'll click Save All here. Switch back to our Q button, and actually let's call this Run Timelines. Come in here to set up the event. We're going to click Add, and we are going to go Run Timeline. The background, we're going to play it looped because we want the first time they click the button to be able to start the background timeline. We're going to say for conditions, we want the conditions to be that it's currently not playing. Okay, anything, 0. So startup. And we want the next timeline to run to equal 0. So the button won't ever execute unless the next timeline is 0, which is the initial state of the program. Click OK. We're going to move this up. We're going to add the next one. Run timeline. Timeline 1. We do not want to loop this. We want it at foreground 1. And our conditions are going to be not currently playing. And next timeline to run equals 1. So this is the first timeline that's run, and we're going to move this up here to the top. Okay, now that we've got that much, let's go ahead and click OK, and let's try this. Run timeline. And it started timeline 1. Why was that? It's because if we had watched our inputs, you would have seen that it had already set. The first time I clicked that button, it had already set these numbers. Notice that it switched back to the toccata, which is our background, and the value is 0. Let's take down the volume a little bit here. Okay, now if I click the button again, you can see it's switching here, but the current playing isn't not going anywhere, and we're not running anything else. When we get back to 1, I click the button, and it runs timeline 1. Currently playing is set to 1. I can keep clicking the button. You can see it keeps going up here. Next timeline. Okay, so that's not good, but we've got really close here. So let's go back into the button properties. This needs a condition where the currently playing is 0. Okay? Now, so that you understand why I did that is because it was increasing during my playback. So now if I come in here, open up my watch inputs window again, notice it's 20, and it won't let me keep going. It won't keep increasing the next timeline to run. No, it doesn't matter how many times I click the button, it's not going to increase here. It gets to the end, 2, 1, switches back to the background. Currently playing, switches back to 0. Next timeline is 2. If I click this Run Timelines, it's not going to have anything to run because I haven't told it to run an event. So we're going to close here. Now we'll show the other trick to this is to set up a button that does your reset. So we're going to call this button Reset. We're going to set up the events, and we're basically just going to set the variables to 0. There's no conditions. Currently playing 0. Add set variable. And next timeline to 0. So this will basically reset the conditions, the two variables, to 0, which is the way we start up VenueMagic. So if we show the watch inputs, click the reset button, you'll see the next timeline switch to 0, which is exactly what we want to show when we start up the program. Okay? So we'll go ahead and stop that. We're going to just drag this down here. Now what we can do is we can go in here to our setup event and we can add timelines, more run timeline events. So we'll run timeline 2, foreground 1, conditions. We want to add our 2 conditions because we don't want it to greater than 0 for currently playing. We don't want it to run just any old time. And this is equal to 2. Okay? Click Add, run timeline, timeline 3, foreground 1. Equals 0. Better go back and check that other one because we want it to only run when it is 0, not when it's greater than 0. So when it's running the background, that's the only time we want this to run. So let's look at timeline 2 again, the conditions. Yeah, I messed that up. Okay. Let's add 2 more timelines. Run timeline 4, foreground 1, equals 4, and add 2 more, or 1 more for timeline 5. So as you can see, this would get rather hairy if you had a large number of different timelines to run. One of the features that will be nice in the next release is the ability for us to create custom scripts. So if you have something that is, lengthy to program, you can simply get us a request and we'll work out a project with you to be able to do your project. Next, we want to move the set variables to the end down here. Click OK. And let's reset and we will try this out. Click Save. So we make changes, run timelines. We've got background running. We've got timeline 1. I'm hitting run timelines. It's not doing anything because it's currently playing. Okay, and that one's now done. click Run Timeline again. We're running Timeline 2. You can see that. A little bit more volume out of this. Okay, run timelines one more time. We're running timeline 3. Notice the next timeline goes to 4. And I can click the button and it won't let me run it until it's finished. Okay, so there's our next one. And switched back to the background. Run timeline one more time. We've got timeline 5. Now I think what this is going to do is it's actually going to try to run timeline 6, which we don't have. So we'll probably need to come in one more time and make one more little change on the run timelines. Background. Yep, it tried to run 6. So I just clicked it once. It's on timeline 1. I know clicking it again will run timeline 1. So let's come back in here to the button properties. And this one we want to trigger on the condition where it is equal to 5 instead of greater than 5. Okay. And let me show you a cool little trick here. If we select the line in the watch inputs, click Set Variable, we can actually set this to 5. Now if I click Run Timeline, it should run Timeline 5 and then immediately switch it to 1. So our next timeline that is up to play is 1. We'll check that, make sure it works, and you'll have a complete running project here. Just fill in the blanks. So as soon as this finishes, we'll click the button one more time. You can see it's not doing anything. You know, it doesn't matter how often I click that button, it's not going to keep going. Okay, so it rolled over properly. It's going through all the timelines properly, and it should be working perfectly. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post below. Send your email. Go to support.VenueMagic.com and submit a request, or email support@VenueMagic.com. Have an awesome day.